Why, hello! My name is Jesse Ellert, and I'm a logo designer. And today, I want to talk about my favorite video game series, which is Dark Souls. Now, this game is clearly near and dear to my heart. I love the look and the feel, and a lot of that you can see within the logo design. Now, maybe you're trying to capture the look, the feel, the style of that Souls-like genre, and if that's what you're trying to do, then let's jump right in the computer and we'll talk about what makes this logo great. So we're gonna start with the first game, second game, third game, and we're gonna finish with Remastered. For myself, whenever I try and design a logo, I'm always trying to suggest these themes. So a big theme in Dark Souls is the dark sigil, that round circle. It's sometimes on fire in the game, and it is inside the logo, but it's only suggested. It's not like right there where you notice it, you see it. It's just kind of hidden. And it's for someone, maybe you can figure it out subconsciously, or if you look closer, you're like, oh, I get it. You know, you fill in the blank. It's not throwing it in your face. It's not right behind it, showing it that it's, oh, you need to look at this. It's subtly done. It's suggesting that it's there. The Dark Souls logo is glowing, and that could be from the bonfire or the linking of the fires. It could be something that's subtly worked into the logo, into the design, and that's why they chose to do that. I don't know 100% for sure, but it's one of those subconscious decisions that you may or may not be able to see. If you can do that and bring that kind of emotion, that kind of feeling, and bring in a part of the game without actually overtly showing it, you're doing a great job as a logo designer. One thing this logo is doing is it's using uppercase letters. Now, uppercase letters are, the majority of video game logos are used uppercase letters. They're a little bit easier to work with when you're doing kerning and such, but also it's a little bit more dynamic, it's a little bit more in your face. Almost every video game logo, if you look at them, will be uppercase or maybe a drop case, and very rarely will they be small case letters. The typeface we are using, according to Google, is Adobe Garmin Pro. We will fact check that later, but it is known for being used in Dr. Seuss, Harry Potter, Hunger Games, as well as Google's original logo. Let's see, what else do we got? Abercrombie and Fitch logo, Apple's Think Different campaign, The Conjuring. You don't have to use a Gothic typeface for every fantasy game. In my designs, I really try to stay away from display typefaces unless I know it's gonna work like amazingly. But a lot of times when I buy these or use them, I spend most of my time trying to fix them with all these issues. Whereas something like this typeface, it's classic. It's been around for a long time. It's easy to use, and it's been used in a lot of different ways. So a lot of those kinks have been worked out. Something that works really well and that can be added to and taken away from very easily. For example, in this A, this has much more of a rounded serif, and as well as there's just a little bit of a roundness there. But when we look at these ones, the actual logo, you can see the serif has this sharp corner right here. I'll make my brush a little bigger. It has this sharp corner, and it has much more sharper edges. Even in the K here, it just kind of cuts off. And even in here, it's almost like a jagged, I don't know if necessarily a spike, but something like stone being like a chunk of something, but it's sharp. In here, the K, it's a little more rounded and cut, whereas this K clearly doesn't have that roundedness to it, which may suggest that it could have been a variant of Garmin, or they went in and made that change. They made the foresight to bring that into the logo. You can see it all throughout. One thing I do notice that is different is this is much, much thicker than there. So it may be a variant on the Adobe Garmin. It could be some other kind of typeface, or they went in and made it a little larger. As for details, they're not slapping you in the face with like all this flair and details and having to look at something. They just kind of make it really simple. There's just little tiny I don't know, like spikes almost, or little flares coming up. There's one that runs through the whole logo that just ties it all together. Having these little marks, I would use the word elegant, but a classicness, an old timeness, it's seen throughout the entire logo, because even when they decide to, it's not in this one, but this, I think this is the Western one. It's the one I have. It's the one I have. The TM, right, the trademark it's so small, where when you look maybe in other games, it might be even a little larger, but they made it really small. They make everything just a little bit smaller. Now let's move on to Dark Souls 2. I can see with this one a little bit better than the last one. The color is coming through. The other one had the color as well. Not a fan of having that color. It's adding contrast. I don't think it's necessary. It looks like the glow is a little bit dialed back as well. One thing that I would note in the Dark Souls 2 and 3 logo is that the Roman numerals, it overshoots the cap height and the baseline. So if we look here, you can see that the base, it goes a little below and a little above. Kind of an interesting choice. And they chose, and instead of putting the TM, instead of moving it, they kept it the same, really small. I like that. There's not a huge difference other than that Roman numerals to the Dark Souls 2 logo. But, because Scholar of the First Sin did come out, they added this tagline, and I really, really like the way that they approached it. It's same typeface, still has that classic, elegant look, and because they took it and they squished it down, made it smaller, but then with kerning and tracking, they spread it out so that it's not fighting, and you have that contrast between the main logo and the tagline, and you still have that premium, elegant, maybe something that you would find on a book that's stamped with gold foil. That's the look that this gives. Look, here, when you're designing a logo and you're doing a tagline, try not to put a ton of distress into the bottom tagline. It's really something you could incorporate in your own logo design, because you can see that the bottom doesn't have all of those little pokies and striations and details. You're not incorporating all of that into the bottom because it's so small. It would be hard to read, hard to replicate, and start to print and start to see. So because of these things, keep the distress, the majority of the distress, on the top. It looks like there's contrast between the weight of both the original logo and the smaller one. So you got contrast there, and then as well as contrast by the size. And that adds, it makes you, like whenever I see it, I kind of have to look in to learn more about, to read that. And it gets me more into the design, into the world of it. And I like that. I like that it's not so big and overpowering. Dark Souls 3 here, and we're gonna confirm whether this actually is this typeface. So I have the Adobe Garmin Pro Bold, and as I'm looking at this, it's very close. The main differences that I'm just seeing, just looking at this, is the R definitely does seem like it's a little longer, and this one seems a little shorter down here. The K, this is wider than its counterpart. This is much, much thinner down below. The D does come up in this kind of arc, whereas this D levels out. As well as the counter of the A here is much smaller in the top one than in the bottom. So that doesn't quite match up. As well as these Roman numerals, or possibly just the I button 3 times, this is quite a bit thinner. Each one of these stems is thinner than the bottom there. So those are like the major, I'd say, call outs. Everything else, like the S, of course the S changes on each of them, but something like that is very reasonably manipulated by hand. This is what I love about the Dark Souls logo. In Dark Souls number 3, you can really see that it's distressed and crumbling. Just like in the game, each game, it keeps getting a little bit more distressed in the world, to where the Ring City, where it's like everything's folding upon itself and the world is just getting out of chaos, and the linking of the fire. Well, in the first video game, logo, you can see that that fire is burning a little bit brighter. And then in the second one, the fire, or the glow of the logo isn't as bright. And then finally in the third one, there's no glow at all. And I like that. I like that it subtly suggests that. Whether that was done on purpose or whether you can subconsciously put that together for yourself, I think that it is hidden tones of higher thinking. And if you can add that into your own designs, again, good on you, man. Like, good on you. It's not just a distressed typeface. It's not just a distressed logo. What it is it's serving the story. Dark Souls Remastered. Again, same thing, has the Dark Souls. It does pretty much the exact same thing that it does in Dark Souls 2, with it being all capitals. The kerning of it is spread out, so it looks bigger, but it is smaller. If you did it with small caps, or if you did it with a small lettering, it would not work very well. It would be hard to read, and it would have to be bigger. So you're able to maintain that small look and feel. So when it looks like they took an opacity brush and they just kind of speckled it around there to give it a little bit of distress. Again, they didn't overdo it. Don't overdo it. Be light-handed. People still have to be able to read it, but it is suggested detail and it works. The main takeaways when creating your own Souls-like designs is use the classic typeface. Stay away from the crappy ones. Use trusted, well-rounded typefaces. Second, less is more. More is not more. Bigger is not always better. Smaller and less detail, just subtly suggested details, goes a long way. And third, what is third? Don't distress those little parts, especially in the text, too much. Finally, tell a story. Tell a story with your images that other people can either consciously or subconsciously link to the game. That's all I have for you guys today. Subscribe if you want more content around video games and logo design, as well as like this video if you liked it, and I will see you in my next one.